Hey there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, in which we are talking about American Gods, Episode 7, entitled A Prayer for Mad Sweeney. I'm Mothman, and I'm joined by, and I'm going to screw this up, by the hanging to my failed transportation, Devin. How's it going, man?
Nice. I was expecting some Irish-themed opening, like my Irish brethren, but I guess that'd be too easy, wouldn't it?
It would be way too easy. Plus, I can't do a really good Irish accent now, can I, eh?
Better than Emily Browning.
Sick burn. Yeah, well, we'll hold off there. We're going to dive into it. But first, I mean, we probably got some great news stories, don't we?
Yeah. Mine's a little bit of redemption. What about yours?
I mean, I'll start with mine. Okay, so KFC, they have this new sandwich. It's called the Zinger, right? I don't know a whole lot about it. I do know that recently they've been using like some kind of celebrity comedians in their ads. Like it's had Rob Riggle and one other comedian whose name escapes me right now. Oh, Norm Macdonald. He's played. That's who it was. And now they have Rob Lowe as a spaceman, and they are going to send their new Zinger sandwich to space as part of their promotional material.
You know what I used to love? Yeah, I mean, anything that ends up in space.
I just feel like it's a slippery slope, right? Like, next thing you know, you're going to have McDonald's, put a McRib in a black hole, and it's going to, like, wipe out an entire other galaxy as, like, a black plague.
Hashtag McRib in a black hole.
Yeah, McRib
Trend
plague.
it now.
Yeah.
So there was this interesting little thing that happened in Arizona. Really good theme for as progressive as a show as American Gods. So there's this guy that has been hanging out outside high schools with the shirts that has big bold letters on it saying, "You deserve to be raped." And he basically sits outside these high schools and screams, basically preaching Bible stuff. And most of his stuff that I've seen after a little research today is a lot of homophobic type stuff.
Sounds like a pretty cool guy, right?
Yeah, he sounds like an awesome guy. Well, he made the news today because someone finally had enough, pulled out a bat, and bashed him over the head. And he got it all on video. So I thought the funny thing is his next sign will be someone should hold a sign up next to him saying, I deserve to be raped. Well, you deserve to get hit in the head with a bat.
Yeah, or someone just wears a shirt, you deserve to get hit in the head with a bat. You're like, why is that less valid than your shirt? Yeah. You showed me that, and I thought that was a pretty funny story. Like, to wear something so despicable, eventually you're going to have to get what's coming to you. Why can't people just get along and not beat each other up and also not wish poorly on one another?
Well, I think it all tends to be because the recording was from him. He actually recorded it because and this seems to be the new thing. I don't know if it's just YouTube trash because I can't see it going anywhere, but it just always ends up being we're in such a provocateur time where we're just going to go out and piss people off, then record them and then post it online. And it all is under this kind of, I think, bullshit guise of free speech. You know what I mean? It's just everyone knows. Sure, you could say whatever the hell you want to reason, but you're not free from the consequence. So I don't know. Maybe it's the current climate. But I personally enjoyed hearing a big ting, like the only thing like an aluminum bat can do, or a golf club.
I feel like that terrible character that got hit with a bat, he is... like a character from last episode's America Town from Vulcan. Straight out of there, right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Hey, you know what, guys? We love doing this show, and we'd love to do it professionally and give you more content than ever. But right now, we just do it on the side for fun. So, I don't know, hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. All that good stuff. And more than anything, be part of the conversation. Share out our episodes with friends. We'd love to start a dialogue. We also even have a Patreon account should you want to, support us there. And last but not least, we are on Apple Podcasts. But without further ado, let's get into our second segment, Summon It Up in a Tweet.
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summing it up. Summing it up, oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summing it up. Summing it up and up.
Tweet.
All right, so you didn't tell me what your tweet was, but you're really proud of it. So I'm going to go ahead and go first because, save the best for last.
Uh-huh.
Makes sense? Okay, all right. Mine doesn't have a rhyme scheme or anything else. It's really just a pretty succinct actual summing up of the episode in a tweet. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it in like a fancy tone. Why does Is that too loud? Okay. Why does a boring leprechaun get a whole episode origin, yet we still have only had 1 minute Nancy scene? This was not the best use of an hour.
Yeah.
I was trying to say Mr. Nancy, but yeah, and we'll talk about this more, and I want to hear yours. But like, of all the things that we're gonna spend an hour on in an 8-hour season, Jesus fucking Christ! All right, your turn.
Yeah.
Hit it.
Okay, so this doesn't sound like it fits, but it totally does,
Okay.
and the rhyming would make Adam proud. Mad Sweeney has a heart not all crusted with gold like we thought. Thanks to Essie, whose soul was wise and old, the gods won't be forgot.
Ooh, my God, that is good.
It fits too. That was what blew me away.
You're like, not only does it rhyme, but it makes sense.
So, yeah, this episode.
Well, let's call it right there. That was Summer Leprechaun. Yeah, so this episode, it sounds like we have not talked about this episode, but from our tweets and your reaction to mine, it sounds like we're on the same page.
Gosh, maybe I'm gonna sound rough. Maybe I'm gonna kind of bump some fans out of the show. But here's the problem that I've had, not even with just this episode, but it's coming to the whole season now because we only have one more episode.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of crazy.
While we were originally like, hey, this is kind of a cool experimental editing style that may be their strength. At least that's what I was thinking for a little bit there. Now I'm just starting to realize, you know what this feels like? This feels like season 4 of Arrested Development. Like, they couldn't get all the actors together, so they had to record it separately. And the timing on it... Yeah, that's why it's so disjointed.
I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of Arrested Development 4, and it's like, how many times can you have lightning hit the same place? I enjoyed it, but like it was... I thought it was just more than anything interesting and experimental... storytelling idea, but that makes more sense that they weren't all like able to get together at the same time.
And apparently they're going with season 5 and they've timed it in a way to be done right. But that's what I'm feeling with this show so far, is that individually each episode, if you take American Gods out of this episode, much like the origin episode with Shadow and Dead Wife, they're good. I mean, this episode was standalone good. Now, granted, you got to have a little bit of the love of the Irish stuff. I happen that my family has some Irish in it, so I liked that part. But overarching, what's the point? They're completely off book at this point, and it doesn't work, I don't think, anymore. And so I mentioned when we started this show, I had those 2 Coming to America stories that I liked. And we've now seen both of them. This was this other one. I had liked the one with the Djinn, and I really liked this one. So Mad Sweeney is not in the Coming to America story at all. So they are taking, the show writers are actually taking it and directing it to, I can see what they're doing, and I can see how it's going to work at the end of the story. But why are we spending an hour on this in an 8-episode, 8-hour season? Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, because the other thing is it's the full hour. Like, it would be one thing if they just, I don't know, if the episode predominantly was about this. And, I mean, I still would be bummed out. But there's literally no, it's just the Mad Sweeney and Dead Girl stuff, but with almost nothing moves along other than the car wreck, right? And so then all it is this origin. And when all these other stories have only been given like a 5-minute segment. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
And that's really all it was supposed to be in the book. Granted, it was a longer Coming to America story, but it definitely wasn't the entirety of a chapter. I mean, this felt like a filler episode of Dragon Ball Z to me. You know what I mean? Because really, what changed? Yes, you had that car accident, but really, at the end of the episode, who grew? Who changed? Who was the antagonist? Who was the protagonist
the only
of this
person that
episode?
grew was Mad Sweeney because he got his coin back and decided to still let her live. So that's it.
Right. Yeah, but I mean,
because otherwise,
based on his memory,
literally the only thing he was after.
So did he decide to do that because he felt guilt for his what we've now seen as his supposed causing of the car accident, or does it all just boil down to he kind of looked like this older lady who brought him to America earlier before? You know what I mean? I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I liked the lore side of it, but I guess I'm just kind of disappointed how we only have one episode left, and we have kind of had like this weird zigzag in the timeline that just I thought was working at first, and now I'm just kind of disappointed.
So let's do this, because I mean, this actually might be like a record for one of our shortest shows. Let's throw to Mike with I May Be Mistaken. He's going to come up here next. And then when we come back, maybe instead of talking a whole lot more about this episode, we'll talk about what we want to see from the finale. Because that's the weird thing, is like, it's going to end. Is there an episode that would give us a satisfying ending to where, it would hook us for second season, right? So I don't actually know if it's even confirmed as it has a second season, is it?
Yeah, it's been renewed. Okay,
good. So what is going to make me tune in? That's what we'll talk about when we get back.
Yeah.
Preacher don't preach.
And now, here's Mike.
Hello and welcome to another edition of I May Be Mistaken. I'm your host as always, Mike. This week I'm going to go ahead and talk about everybody's favorite little dude, the Leprechaun. Really the giant of Irish folklore, and the pun was intended. It might not have been a good pun, but it was intended. And leprechauns, they're basically synonymous with St. Patrick and just about everything Irish, Notre Dame University. And so they're really, really familiar. And the name of the leprechaun, the word leprechaun, I guess, derives from the old Irish word lucorpan. I'm probably saying that too fancy and wrong, but it's Luchorpan. And that means like little body, like, small body, which seems, really obvious. And that is thanks to the Encyclopedia Britannica. There's a couple other ones. Some of them basically have the same idea behind them, where we're just talking about like a little person. Some of them are a little bit more folklore, where they're talking about, it describes them as a fairy. We're still talking about the etymology. So it varies a little, but basically you're safe to say that the word leprechaun is derived from old Irish language and means little body. And they're tricksters. I mean, I think we know that. They're always hiding away their pot of gold, and they're always after me Lucky Charms. And we discussed tricksters before. This is like a real popular trope in mythology and folklore. We discussed it with Anansi, the brown spider, and leprechauns are no different. They're always up to mischief. I guess if you're looking at them, I read, and you're talking to them, and then you look away, they tend to disappear. And an interesting thing about the leprechaun is they're actually known as like cobblers. I didn't realize this. This might seem like obvious information, but they like fixing shoes, and apparently they fix the shoes of all like the other nether creatures in Irish folklore and mythology, which is like the fairies and stuff, who I don't think wear shoes, but apparently they do, because the leprechauns are fixing them, or maybe the leprechauns just suck at fixing shoes. That's why the fairies don't ever have shoes. I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far. But they also spend a lot of time pulling practical jokes, and that's probably more akin to what we're familiar with when it comes to leprechauns. something I found really interesting, and is kind of accredited to the writer W.B. Yeats, is that although leprechauns are like popularly described and presented as being, wearing green, clad in green jacket and pants and all that, they are actually probably more often known properly for wearing red, which I thought was pretty interesting, because I found nothing to support this idea, but it kind of in my mind attached them somehow to Santa Claus and that whole line of mythology. But there's like other things attached to their outfit that are interesting, like they have 7 buttons on their coat, 7 on each side, so it's a row of 7 and a row of 7, and I'm sure people into numerology can tell me what the significance of that is. I couldn't find any. I just thought it was a significant little detail. But what's really fascinating that I found out here is that they were known early on, like in the first story that speaks of leprechauns. They were subaquatic creatures, like they lived underwater, which is really cool. The first story is actually them, like there's this Irish king laying on a beach, and he wakes up only to find like 3 leprechauns dragging him into the sea. So it's really cool. I love finding this stuff out about these creatures that we assume a lot, but we might not know as much as we assume. I know for sure I'm guilty of that. Hopefully you aren't. Hopefully you're smarter than I am. But if not, I hope you learned a little something tonight. And I'll see you next time, buddies. Enjoy the rest of the show. Peace.
Preacher don't preach.
Hey there, little buddies. Does the state of the world leave you in despair and make you want to leave this world only to try out another one? Well, you don't have to wait 50 years for Elon Musk to colonize Mars. You can step into another world right now with Audible. That's right. With Audible, you can go to any foreign world you want with classic authors such as H.G. Wells, Philip K. Dick, George Orwell, and many, many more. And just when you finish one book and become depressed and have to confront the harsh reality that you live in, well, that's when you realize there's 180,000 more titles to choose from. So go to audibletrial.com/Boob Tube Buddies to try it free for 30 days. You'll be doing yourself a favor, and I guarantee you won't regret it. Nor will your fragile psyche. All right, and we are back. Thank you again to Mike. Love having him on the show. Always has such great insight. His segments have been also in the Black Mirror podcast, so if you've not checked that out, it's on Netflix, and we have an episode for every single one with interviews and all kinds of stuff. He's also doing Sense8, which I think only has 2 episodes left. He's doing that with Kristen. And then he's also done like Guardians and some other movie reviews, so check them out. But as we said before the break, I don't know how much we actually have to add about this episode. Like, not much moved forward other than maybe the redemptive aspect of Mad Sweeney, and then the origin like was there, but and one of the things that struck me is like I liked the design of it. Like it had the way they told the story, the visuals, the kind of 50s music over top. Like you said earlier, it's a good episode on its own. It feels like a wasted episode of a different show that you're not watching in the context of the whole season, though. It certainly doesn't feel like the penultimate episode. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, the 50s music too just kind of, it also felt jarring because it's like, wait, why are we hearing this period music for an 1800s time period? It was so odd.
And that didn't really bother me because like the way they were narrating, they were also very much not narrating in that time period. And then they kind of tied in Ibis and his other assistant or whoever who's writing this thing about lovers. But that stuff and the tone wasn't really my issue. It was just like, who the fuck cares, I guess. The one thing I did like, I liked that the whole episode was based just from an inspiration because I batch up his name, Iris, Mr. Iris at the beginning, had a little bit of inspiration because he cracked open his home brew of Irish red ale. So that was pretty much the Killian's Irish Red. That's what it is.
The other guy's like, stop it. Or he's Jacques. sits there and he's like, don't you have something to write? And then he just sat there, took a drink, smelled the beer, was like, oh yeah, I do. And I'm going to go write it. We're going to have an hour of Irish red ale through the story of...
Next time, don't get drunk when you're writing an episode, you know?
And then spin off for an hour.
So, what do you want to see? Because, I mean, I would expect normally a penultimate episode of a show, especially one like this, where it's basically about gods going to war, right? So there's a pretty big end game we're kind of working towards. You'd expect this episode to kind of have stuff marching forward, and like really nothing happens other than the fact that she's, you know, dead, and maybe you buy that for a minute, and then he puts the coin back in her and she's alive. So we literally are going to start next episode off with almost nothing else accomplished. So like, what do you want the finale to have in it that would have you tune in next year?
So this big event that I keep, you know, referring to is what they're going to have to somehow fit that in there. Which I could tell by looking at the preview of the next episode. I don't think it is. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to tie a bow on this season and have it. They're going to have to go off book again. That's the only thing I could think of, is that I need to drop expectations and then just say, hey, this is its own story. But for what I'm going to have to want to see moving forward is this extremely jarring non-linear editing style and storytelling. Like, are going to have to literally kind of move everyone along at a pace that at least you can kind of connect the dots to it, because otherwise it's just a bunch of random tangents, you know? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And
it really does seem silly, like that. Like, we've been introduced to, say, Mr. Nancy, who, like, that was one of the more striking performances. The fact that we've had, like, not one but two of the sex scenes with the goddess, and yet they aren't tying together. And initially, you were explaining to me there's like the Coming to America concept, and there's these vignettes in the book. And I was like, oh, okay, so they're just doing that. But then other ones became part of the plot. So whatever his name is, Ibis, the Egyptian god. You see him in this episode. In other episodes, he's the one that puts the dead girl back together. You also have seen Salim, you know, who's was in love with the jinn. So you're seeing a lot of these characters tie into the main universe. So it makes it all the more weird that there's still plenty of them that haven't. I mean, the only thing in this episode they kind of give a little more context to is the buffalo we've been seeing, but like that's it. You know?
Yeah.
They let Salim go, but like not a whole lot happens. So I'm with you. Like, I want to start seeing, I don't know, I guess I want to start seeing the armies mount.
Yeah. Start to see some actual context to, or direction on where they're going, because right now no one's answering the why question. And I mean, you're getting, I guess I should step back. You're getting the why, but you're not getting the reason behind the why, if that makes any sense. You just get this kind of, we want to go to war because we don't want to get forgotten. Well, at what point? So the new gods are like actively pushing down the old gods? That hasn't really kind of been shown yet. All that's really been shown is that these new gods are like, hey, don't come and go to war with us. We will give you a new super high missile that will nuke North Korea. You know, that
I don't know why the war is being fought. Like, as someone that hasn't read the book, that's not clear to me right now.
Right. And you know, there's a lot of weird, confusing stuff that keeps getting skipped. Like, Salim, did I miss that they were holding him hostage?
Yeah, I had no idea.
No idea. Wait a minute. Wait, what?
Yeah, I didn't know that either, and I just thought that was an oversight, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I was like, wait a minute, what? He's a hostage, yet he's bold enough to do his prayers for the 5 times a day, and then he gets kicked out? I don't understand. Weird,
and
right?
I mean, we're watching this directly. It's not like we're doing it in the background. We're recording a podcast on it. How are we missing details like this? At some point,
this is something that we take, fairly seriously, and
mild.
Like, it's one of the shows. Like, I definitely am guilty of certain TV shows or just certain episodes of TV shows or certain frames of mind where I will pull out my phone. And there's like that line earlier in the episode about like you pull out your smaller screen when you get bored with the bigger screen that Gillian Anderson gives. But I kind of make a point with the shows we cover not to do that, mainly because, you know, otherwise we miss shit like that. But even with the new dog that's dividing my attention, even when I am otherwise trying to focus, like I feel like that's not something that should have been missed, right?
Right. And, you know, there's got to be... A show's got to sit there and make you want to watch it, especially if you were as committed to it as, say, we are, and as excited as I am and was for many years that they were pushing this through. And, you know, it's kind of it almost feels like a chore to kind of force myself to sit down and watch it. And then when you get 5 minutes into it and go, wait a minute, why are we not seeing anything else? And I think the thing that really pulls you out of it even further is that some of the performances that the show has done have been fucking stellar.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Nancy's performance makes you go, Jesus, I want more of this. You know, Wednesday's performance is like, damn it, this is awesome. Mad Sweeney has just not been a character to make me go, I totally need an hour of this dude. Granted, he comes out with a little bit more likable, but it's still not, you know, it's not anything that pulls you in. And they're kind of taking Emily Browning almost like for as powerful as performance. It's just kind of like old Hobbit or Lord of the Rings quote, too much butter or too little butter spread over too much bread. It's just getting stretched to the point where it's like, don't we have somewhere else we need to be? Don't we have some other narrative that should be focused on right now?
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely feel like there's infinitely more ways to spend their time. And at the end of the day, if it's like we're going to have a story take up the majority of the episode that doesn't really push the main story forward, then it also could have just been any of the origins with that much more time. Like the stop motion looking one that we talked about looking like Leica. I mean, it was CGI, I believe, but it looked like stop motion. I would have definitely preferred an almost hour of that, you know, if I had to pick and choose. You know, obviously we've talked about Mr. Nancy, like he's incredibly appealing as well. So yeah, it just didn't seem to be the best use of time when you only have 8 hours to like sell an audience and you're dealing with such large concept. So I'm really hoping next episode is kind of an action, like call to arms, like let's clearly define the plot. Let's have Shadows stop pretending he doesn't know what's going on. Let's kind of look this in the face. And then season 2 is very much, this is a show about gods going to war to basically win the prayers and worship of the modern man. And then I would, if I felt like that was definitely the direction of the second season based on next episode, then I'll tune in next year, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's too much shit to watch, right? Like, I mean, you know, it's not like TV is limited these days, right? I watch more TV than movies because that's where a lot of the really good art is.
There is so much content right now, and it is such focused content where we are getting things that we've wanted for like 10 years finally getting made. And like, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I know how much of a cult following it has. You're getting The Tick as a show again.
Oh, God.
I mean,
yes.
You're getting just infinitely passionate people's desired content and just tons of it just being thrown at you. So, yeah, you can't watch it all. Otherwise, you're just going to be, you know, the guy from the World of Warcraft episode of South Park. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So you almost have to have discerning taste. You have to be a TV snob sometimes.
Bucket.
Hashtag TV snob.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this might have the record for, out of like the 200 plus episodes we have, being the shortest one, but you know, we're not going to waste an hour of your time when we don't really have much to add. Obviously, if you're one of the people out there that enjoyed it, we'd love to hear your side of it and why, because we didn't talk beforehand and we both didn't like it. And this is the only episode we've really not liked. I mean, every other one seemed to have its merit, but like this one this far along, like it just didn't work, at least for me, on almost any level. So
Agreed.
Cool. Alrighty. Let's tie a bow in this bitch.
We'll see you next time, buddies. Little buddies. Damn it!
Close enough.
Screwed it up.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. Meatloaf said it.
Yeah.